We read this earlier, for where two or three are gathered together in my name, I am there in the midst of them. There's more than just two or three here. God is here. He's here. He's in our midst. His presence is with us. And if you're not familiar with the presence of God, then I pray today you encounter him as he wants to encounter you and do something very special. Today in this place, he is such a good God. And you know, I know it's Father's Day, but this is not just a message for the men here. This is a message from the Father to his children. It is from his heart for all of us as his children. Can I share a quick story with you? Can I be vulnerable for a little bit? Okay, who loves Reese's peanut butter cups? Raise your hand. Oh, come. Yes, first service there weren't as many. This is the crew right here. So I just have a vulnerable moment that happened 2 years ago. I was in my office. I had a giant bag of Reese's peanut butter cups next to me, a giant bag that was staring at me all morning and all afternoon, inviting me in. And so I said, okay, let's do this. So I went to that bag, and as I tried to open it up, I could not get it open. You know what I'm talking about, those bags? You're like, what have they done to this thing? So I'm trying everything I can, and I'm a little angry, to be honest with you. I want that Reese's peanut butter cup, and I wanted it now. So I did what any adult man should do. I grabbed a knife, and I stabbed it right into that bag to open it up. I also went straight into my thumb and into the bone. Yes, thank you. Nobody groaned the first service, like, served you right. Lower calories, should have been celery. It was Reese's peanut butter cups. So once it went into my bone and there was blood everywhere, I did what a responsible adult would do. I ate 3 Reese's peanut butter cups immediately. Before it got really messy, I figured I'm taking advantage of this moment. I must have yelled or said ow very loudly that Pastor Michael, who's across from me, Sinclair, came in through the door. What happened? And I showed him. So what do we do immediately? We wrapped it up, right? We wrapped it up. We all know this. We all know growing up, maybe somebody, a teacher, a parent, a nurse, whoever told you, an older brother or sister, if you get a cut, wrap it up, cover it up, right? You have to do that. Otherwise, what could happen? Infection could happen. Infection could get into that cut, and it could begin to spread, and it can become very serious. So I wrapped it up, I covered it up, and then Pastor Michael and I went to an urgent care. We've known each other for almost our whole life, and I have to say, we have driven one another to the hospital on many occasions. And that's like our quality time together. So as we're driving there, we get to the urgent care. I go in the back. The doctor comes out, asks me what happens. Humbling moment. I stabbed it with a knife. What were you doing with the knife? I was trying to get into a bag. Well, what was in the bag? Reese's peanut butter cups. So it's a humbling moment with my head down. And then the doctor said, okay, take the bandages off. Now, when the doctor is there and says, take the bandages off, if I say, no, I won't do it, healing won't come, right? I mean, I don't take the bandages off when I was on the way there. I don't run my open sore and cut through the dirt or go in a crowd of people and let everyone's germs breathe on and all this. But there is a safe place where I could let it be exposed. And it was when the doctor was there. And so I pulled off that bandage, and he saw it, and then I had to get stitched up. Now, this is my encouragement to us. The doctor, the good Father, is here. He's in this house this afternoon, and he's got healing in his hands, and it's with love from his heart. And this is a safe place. He's giving us permission to allow certain areas of our lives that maybe we've hidden to be exposed before him today. It's part of human nature that we try to hide when things are exposed. It started off in the garden, the beginning of creation, the first of humanity that was created, Adam and Eve. And in that place, they're there with God, and they decide that they no longer need God. They're no longer in need of being dependent on him. And so they disobey him, and by doing that, pushing him away and pushing him further away, when they take of that fruit, suddenly they can see that they're naked. and they're exposed. Sin in their life, they became aware that they were exposed and naked, and they ran, it said, and they hid. And they tried to cover up. And as God's going through the garden, he knew where they were, but he asked, where are you? Why are you hiding? Well, we realized we were naked and we were afraid. I think that many of us, and I know that many of us, because this is from the Father's heart to his children, there's areas in our lives that we've hidden. We've kind of covered them up. We've pushed them aside. We've locked them in the basement of our life, shut the light off, locked the door again, and we said, I'm not going to think about that. But you know, with my thumb, though it wasn't a crazy deep cut, 5, 6 stitches, if I would have let that sore stay open, if I would have never let the doctor see it and do what he could do to heal it, then that could have got infected and that could have gotten into the bone. And if that got into the bone, that could be dangerous. I could have had to lose my thumb. And if I didn't take care of that, then that could have spread and it could be lethal in the long run. And so the areas we think it's a little bit and it's hidden, the good Father today is saying, I'm the doctor and I want to heal you. Ephesians 5 says this, have nothing to do with the fruitless deeds of darkness, but rather expose them. It is shameful even to mention what the disobedient do in secret, but everything exposed by the light becomes visible, and everything that is illuminated becomes a light. Everything exposed by the light becomes visible. It becomes visible. This afternoon is a moment where I think things that we've hidden in the dark, it's time for us to come before our good Father and hold them out before him. Jesus doesn't push you away. Like I said earlier, he doesn't say, get cleaned up. The doctor didn't tell me, oh, you brought your thumb and you didn't clean it properly, so we're going to have to send you back to all the 50 minutes of paperwork. That's not what happened. He cleaned me up, stitched me up. But it's interesting when we bring those things, those places of failure in our life or from our past or pain that we don't want exposed, when we bring those things before God into the light of Jesus Christ, it says that they themselves become illuminated. They glow with his presence. Do you mean that the broken places in our life, if placed in the doctor's hands, can become things and places of glory for our Jesus and our Savior? Yes, welcome to what it means to be a Christian, covered in the grace of God and revealing the grace of God. That's why it says everything that is illuminated becomes a light. This is why it is said, wake up, sleeper, rise from the dead, and Christ will shine on you. I know that today, on this Sunday, 12:32 p.m., 1 Higbee Drive, Smithtown Gospel Tabernacle, you are here in a place and there is a window open from the good Father and who he is to encounter us, to let his goodness and his light and his life invade those areas of your life. Describing Jesus, it says, in him was life, and that life was the light of all humanity. The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness has not overcome it. The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness has not overcome it. Some of you have felt so defeated and overcome in the cycle of hiding. You feel there's no hope. And I'm going to keep saying this, but the doctor is in this house today, and he's a good Father, and he loves you. See, the children of God, we're not meant to be hidden. We're not called to be hidden. And the places in our life that we cover or bury are not always as obvious or apparent as being naked in a garden. It's not always as obvious as that. It's normally a little hidden, a little more secretive. It's that computer in the basement we find ourselves going to when we feel our life's out of control. It's that app that we visit on our phone when no one's really around because we find some sort of satisfaction and pleasure in it. It's the hidden failures of your past, areas of your life that you know you failed at. You hope no one would see, and so we keep these things hidden. It's the substance that's hidden in the cupboards of your life that you crawl back to when times are hard. When you don't know what to do, you go back to that substance just to get through your day. It's the places that you go after work before you get home, the stop in between. It's the moments of rage and anger that you wish no one would have to see, but those that are closest to you, those that maybe work under you, work with you, are the victims of. It's these type of things. And listen, the results of a people who are constantly hiding, you could see it in the world around us, is only a cycle of shame, more secrets, paralysis. You can't do anything. You feel you can't move forward. You feel you can't break through that cycle. Coping, getting deeper into it. Pride, it won't, it's okay. That's over there, but let me put this on so I can then approach and do what I have to do. But there's a moment that that's slowly going to spread. And God is speaking from the heart of a father and any good doctor who says, I don't want to see you sick, hurting, or hiding. So much so that in the garden from that point on, he set a plan that said, you won't have to hide from me anymore. I will send my own son, my own blood to give his life so that he might cover you and you might be in him and you might be my children who can be in my presence. That's why we can be here this afternoon. Once we're exposed, the next step we take is extremely important. It makes all the difference. I think a great story is that of Judas and Peter. These are two men who really lived in a time a long time ago, over 2,000 years ago. They were ones who Jesus called out by name to be his disciples and his followers. They were with him, Judas and Peter. They saw the miracles he did. They saw the signs and the wonders that God did. Jesus calling a dead person out of the grave back to life again, raising the dead. They heard his messages when he spoke about forgiveness and loving your enemy, forgiving those who persecute you. But they both find themselves on a very lonely night, the night that Jesus is betrayed and the night that Peter denies him. There they find themselves in the same place, probably from places of disappointment. Judas probably realized, you know what? He's not going to do the kingdom I think he's going to do. I thought there was going to be a real kingdom here and a real king, and I was going to be a part of it. But now I'm realizing he's not doing that. And so slowly his plans started to change, and slowly he began to move further and further away from Jesus. As his heart began to drift, some silver looked good to take care of himself, and so he'd be willing to turn in Jesus. Peter, on the other hand, he did think the same thing. There would be a real kingdom. And then he realizes there's not going to be an actual physical kingdom here. It's something bigger than that, especially when Jesus in the garden, when the guards come, tells Peter, put down your sword. Those who live by the sword will die by the sword. And he sees Jesus willingly surrender. But both of them, one who betrays and one who denies, their responses were different, and it made all the difference. Judas, on the one hand, tried to fix it himself. After he realizes that he betrayed innocent blood, he is overwhelmed with guilt and with shame, and so he goes and he returns the money to the religious leaders there, and he throws it at their feet. What should I do? They say, it's on you now. Some of you, maybe you've just tried to fix it on your own. You go into that place when no one's looking, and you try to fix it on your own, and it is a mess. And it is painful, and it sends you even deeper into shame and to guilt. Maybe others of you, you've constantly gone to other people. Listen, going to people and being transparent and vulnerable is important. That's a part of freedom, but that is part two. Part one is being undone before your Maker and your Lord. You won't get the fullness of part two until you've surrendered in part one. And so Judas, he goes there and they tell him it's up to you. And he realizes, Judas, well, if it's up to me, I remember one thing. An eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth. And so I guess it's a life for a life. And he takes his life. He just kept moving further away from Jesus. I mean, Judas heard Jesus talking to those that hated him and saw Jesus lovingly respond to them. He saw Jesus reach the outsiders and the people who everyone shied away from and didn't even want to touch. He saw Jesus embrace them and love them. He saw the forgiveness of the Master and the Creator, and yet still in that place, you can be around Jesus all you want. You can be around Christianity and good people who love the Lord all you want, but if you don't yourself get close to Jesus, you can repeat the same cycle and find yourself lost in the same place like Judas was. But see, Peter was a little different. He denied Jesus, and Jesus saw that, was a witness of it, and Peter's broken because of it. And he runs and he weeps and he cries before God. See, the Father today wants to embrace you in brokenness and hold you in your brokenness. Peter weeps. He finds out a couple days later the tomb is empty. Still with his questions and wondering why, it doesn't suddenly make him run away and say, I got to get out of town, the tomb's empty. No, he runs to the tomb. He keeps moving closer, even in his vulnerability and transparency, even after he's been exposed. He doesn't move further away from God. He gets closer. He runs to the tomb. When he's in the boat and John says that's Jesus on the shore, Peter doesn't begin to row further deeper into the sea. He takes his clothing and he dives into the water and he swims after Jesus. He gets close to Jesus in his vulnerability, not further away. And because of that, Peter becomes one who we are eating the fruit of his life and his obedience. He's restored, he's healed, he's empowered, and he becomes a life that even in his brokenness and his exposure, the glory of God shines on him. And we see that light thousands of years later. My question to you is, in this moment today, right here in this window God's given us, are you ready to be vulnerable before him? Are you ready to be transparent before him and realize he's a loving and good Father? I mean, Jesus does that example for us. Jesus was vulnerable. Jesus was transparent. He's on the cross and he yells out, my God, why have you forsaken me? It's a real feeling, and some of you might feel in that place. Jesus felt the distance from his Father. He felt the pain. He felt the weight of the sin. It was on him, and he cries out, transparent and vulnerable, naked on a cross. The Son of God, the one who breathed life into existence. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. Through him all things were made. And anything that's made was through him. There he is. My God, why have you forsaken me? But even in the distance he felt from his Father, he then said this, into your hands I commit my spirit. I guess my challenge for all of us, you feel vulnerable? You feel broken, you feel distant. Take a step closer to him. Take one step closer to him. Bring all of you, not just the best you. See, being vulnerable and transparent is not just voicing our failures and shortcomings. Sometimes we think it ends there. If I just say my failure and my shortcoming, good, I did it. Why isn't anything happening? No, it's walking out of darkness and into light. It's a journey. It's a path. It takes steps. Like Peter took steps closer and closer to Jesus. We're called as a people of God to become undone in the presence of God. Undone meaning, I really have nothing, God. You see it all. You see everything. You know, you might ask this question. If he knows everything, he knows that part of my life, then why do I have to do something? Why do I actually have to do something? Well, if the surgeon and I both know that I have a sickness and an ailment that needs surgery, that's not enough for me to embrace the healing. We both have the knowledge that I need it. We're both aware of the sickness within me. But until I get on that surgery table, exposed and vulnerable, undone and realizing that I might even have to be put under, till I surrender in that place, then the healing comes. The Lord is giving us permission this afternoon to be undone before him. Will you and I accept that gracious invitation from our God? He's such a good Father. He loves you so much, and it's breaking his heart seeing his people and his children. Some of you might be here right now and you feel like an orphan. You feel lost in that darkness, and he's reaching in his love and his sacrifice to embrace you, and he has a seat at his table that you can sit at, and a meal of his grace he wants you to eat at. Others of you are children who feel that there's just that part hidden away. I don't know what it is, and I'm not going to go through a list of it. You know exactly what it is. You know exactly where it's buried in your life. You know exactly that little cupboard it's hidden in. You know exactly deep in the basement cellar where it lies. You know what that is, and God's heart is breaking as a father who looks at his children with such deep love that he's saying, I don't want you to be hidden anymore. Because he loves you, and he loves a world that has to see the light of Christ through you. We wonder why we're not seeing the power of Jesus Christ flow out in our workplace and in our schools. So my question is, when we gather in these moments, are you being vulnerable and transparent before God, knowing he's a good father who's not going to slap you in the face? I think someone here that you were abused by your father, your earthly father, he would slap you in the face, and you have thought that is what God's going to do when you reveal that part of your life and your heart. And God is saying, I am not a father to slap you in the face, but to embrace you and tell you who you are and my love for you. These moments are special moments in the house, in the community of God. When we gather together, it's moments we can be vulnerable. It's moments that we can let our guard down. It's moments that we can be exposed and undone before God. And we say, God, search my soul and search my heart. Find those places that I need to surrender and heal me, Lord, that I might be undone before you. These are those moments. So when we leave this place, we can begin a journey of being a whole people and a people of light in a dark world. Would you stand up this afternoon? One of the stories I love about Jesus encountering someone is a woman at a well in Samaria, a Samaritan woman. It comes out at a time that no one else is coming to get water because she doesn't want to be seen, because she's been living a life of promiscuity. She has shame. So she comes at an hour when no one else really is around, but guess who's waiting there for her? Jesus. His disciples went off to get food, but he said, I'll stay here. I have food you don't know about. And when that woman came forward, Jesus began to ask her some very pointed questions and converse with her. And finally, he gets to a point where he exposes a part of her life she didn't want anyone else to see. And she tries to dance around it, but he keeps going at it. And finally, there she is, exposed with her past and her present situation of pain, of sin, of brokenness. Jesus calls out that which is hiding to the light. And then he tells her who he is, that he's the one her and her people have waited for, the Messiah, the healer, the deliverer, that you could worship in spirit and in truth. And she is so impacted by his love and his truth. She goes back to the town. She gathers everyone from the town, and this is what she says: come and meet the man who told me everything I ever did. But she didn't have her head down in shame. Everyone knew what she had done. But she didn't have her head down in shame, because when she was finally transparent and vulnerable before God, In that moment, then suddenly her past became a catalyst for her to find a new future. And in that, she found grace in Jesus. And she brought a whole city and a whole town to Jesus, and many believed. I guess my encouragement to you is this. In this moment today, and this afternoon, Jesus wants to encounter you, and he wants to pull out of you those things that you are hiding even from him. And when you do that, when you let those things be exposed before our good Father and our good doctor, there will be healing, and our land will be healed. And that's why it says in Matthew 5, you are the light of the world. A town built on a hill cannot be hidden, neither do people light a lamp and put it under a bowl. Instead, they put it on its stand, and it gives light to everyone in the house. In the same way, let your light shine before others, that they might see your life and glorify your Father in heaven. This is a moment for us to be undone in the presence of our good Father, in the presence of our Savior, in the presence of the good doctor, who is a God of healing, a God of conviction, not condemnation. A God who takes our brokenness and embraces it to make us whole, not dust us away. Would you just worship in this moment? I see oftentimes throughout Scripture that when the Lord approaches his people, both in the Old and New Testament, and they feel exposed, those that get on their knees, those that put up their hands, those that worship him are the ones that he restores, redeems, and blesses. And those are the ones that we read their stories, and those stories, those testimonies have pulled us out of darkness and into the marvelous light. I pray that this moment is a moment for us today as a community. Would you just worship the Lord and be undone before him?